Practice makes perfect, Patrick. We've done this enough times now that we aren't perfect, but
we're working on it. We're working on it.
We'll always be working on it. And
sure.
I think the interesting thing about the idea of practice, and I think you pointed this out. Actually, I have the message here when we were talking about putting this thing together. You said,
I remember what I wrote. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You said, well, you go ahead. Go ahead then. Share what you said.
Practice means different things depending upon the context in which it is used. Practice can be the act of trying something. It can also be the art of doing something, right? And that you need to do the former in order to turn it into the latter. In other words, and let's just use these in their general contextual terms, right? A doctor has a practice, right? That practice is I have this skill that I have trained for many years to do, and I have worked under other doctors, even in the course after that, right? And now I have enough practice that it has become an art. It has become something I'm very, very skilled at, such that I can now open my own practice, which is the art of doing it, right? And this is the reason why we call that a practice or a law practice or in general, those professional many years of work and training and study and such, many years of practice to be able to do and at the same time, any doctor, any lawyer will tell you, no, medicine is changing all the time. It's a science. And so we're getting new skills, new ideas, new capabilities, new tools, new information that we didn't know before. We're still there's a lot to do here. And even though I'm really, really skilled and I've been doing this for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, I still practice, right? The new stuff that I learn and keep the skills sharp still on the old stuff that I know. And same with a legal practice, right?
Right.
Yes, the law changes all the time. And, if Congress makes or the state or this or that or the other or precedent, a court case that gets decided a certain way, that now I need to learn about that court case because it helps to inform how I should argue my next one, right? Precedent becomes a thing. And so even then, even if you've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, it's changing all the time. And therefore you must keep up your practice, right? And that's what I find interesting about the word practice and about the idea of practice. And because those contexts do speak to the idea that we are never really done growing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's not just that. It's just we're never really, it's not a box we check off.
No.
I think part of the issue with the term practice, number one, it's a verb and a noun. It's a lot like time.
Right.
It's such a misunderstood but I think we hear about it in terms of sport often, right? I'm going to go to practice or I'm going to practice this. But the playing is when it really counts. And I think that's where the conflation lies. I'm going to go to practice and then I'm going to play or participate or whatever, right? Right now,
or if you're a musician, you practice violin
for the gig,
you're going
for
to
the
go
gig.
and play violin, right?
Right. So, but I think in the context of what I'm talking about is the event, the finale, the reason you're doing it, right? I'm practicing because this is what's going to happen. And that seems to kind of put out there that you do it just for that event and then you're done, right? That's not true in so many ways. As a matter of fact, I think that Seth Godin wrote a book called The Practice, right? And I mean, there's lots of thoughts around the idea of practice, but I think that confusion or that miscorrelation or whatever around I practice so I can compete, play, do whatever. I think if we recognize that the doing is never done in those instances, then the practice becomes more important. Do you remember the Ted Lasso bit where Jamie Tart was too injured to practice or train, as they say in football? And he said, do you remember that scene where Ted Lasso got upset with him? He goes, "Oh, it's just practice." Like, and even
you're gonna hate me. You're gonna
you've
hate
never
me
watched
because
Ted Lasso.
I've never seen Ted Lasso.
I think
I don't subscribe to Apple TV. I have not subscribed to Apple TV, and therefore I have never seen anything that is on Apple TV. Severance or is that the one the weird one with the
Ben Stiller
workplace that
yep.
Yeah. That's the weird one. And like any
Shrinking,
of those shows,
all
I've never
those,
seen them.
So to me, number one,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. I'll deviate.
No, you don't have to.
No.
Everyone listening to this podcast, I'm sure, has
I'm going to deviate in that. I think a show like Ted Lasso, in the times that we're in, is a great show to watch. Like, I think that it's so, there's an optimism to it and such. But nonetheless, there's this scene that when Jamie Tart, the star player, says, "I'm too hurt," or "I'm sore," or whatever, "I'm not gonna, I can't participate today." And he basically says, "Well, it's just practice. It's just training. Like, whatever. I'm that good. Like, it doesn't matter." And Ted Lasso's character is like, "It's just practice. It's just like, he gets angry, and he's not. It's so interesting because the character of Ted Lasso doesn't get upset that much. But the idea of practice in that instance isn't about it's not always about improving. It's about showing up for the potential to improve, or showing up in that instance for the teammates. So practice is very big. And I believe that we tend to focus more on the competition around it rather than the practice of just self-improvement and the benefits that come from that.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite books on this subject, is a book, by, Dr. Tim Grover. Dr. Tim Grover, was actually, he is a professional sports coach, but he not a coach of teams, a personal coach to extremely high performing individuals. Like, he's the coach they have when they're not playing, when they're not in practice, when they're like, he's their personal coach. And by very, very high performing individuals, I'm talking about people like Tiger Woods, people like Charles Barkley, people like Kobe Bryant, and
Kobe,
LeBron James.
I think I know what book you're talking about, because Kobe, I think, features prominently in it.
Yeah, but also featured prominently in it is Michael Jordan. The book is called Relentless. From good to great to unstoppable. And I just love this. There's a like I could talk for a whole hour just about this book, but I'm not. But in the book, he has a lot of stories about Jordan and like what made Jordan, right? And all of these guys, right? And this is a quote from the book. "No matter what happened the night before, good game, bad game, soreness, fatigue, he was up working out every morning while most other guys slept. Interesting how the guy with the most talent and success spent more time working out than anyone else." Right?
Yeah.
And Grover's job, actually part of his job, part of like how he worked with Jordan was the night after the game, he would call Jordan and say, "What time should I meet you at the gym tomorrow morning?" And Jordan would be like, 5 a.m. All right. And there's Jordan, 5 a.m., working his ass off while everybody else is recovering from the game, right? And part of the point he makes is that what separates the Jordans, the Woods, the Bryants from guys like you and me is their obsessive practice, right? Their obsessive ability to work harder and to always be focused on better, right? And one of the other thing I love about the book Relentless is that, he basically spends the introduction telling you that you're never going to be what any of these guys are. And so if you're reading the book, this is not a self-help book.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you that you can do this, because you can't. You will never be this.
Yeah.
and here, but you're going to read the book, you're going to find out why.
Yeah.
But what I am going to tell you, like, what it takes. And if you can do that, you at least are going to be 5%, 10% better than everyone else around you in whatever it is you do. But a Jordan only comes around once every 50 years, so forget about it, right?
Well, and I remember listening to a podcast by the David Robinsons, and I say David Robinsons because it was David Robinson Sr., who is well known for playing for the San Antonio Spurs, and then his son. And it was called The Fundamentals. And the reason that and it was a short mini series, link to it in the show notes. And one thing that David Robinson Sr. said, he said, in order to be great, you have to be great at the fundamentals. And he told the story around how some of the players that played for the Spurs in his early days with them, and I might be misquoting, but they were, and he would see this, like they would do the fancy shots and all the like crazy, plays that are not fundamental, but they couldn't do a simple bounce pass or a chest pass. Like they basically they'd skip those fundamentals. And of course, there was a player who played for the Spurs that came up after Robinson, or at least partly afterwards, and that's Tim Duncan, who is known as the big fundamental. And he was never flashy. He never, he was quiet. He went about his business, widely considered to be one of the top players ever, and possibly the best player at his position ever. And it's really interesting because the fundamentals aren't sexy. Nope. The working out at 5 a.m. in the morning is not sexy. Because again, that's not the game. Not fun. No one's watching that. No one's watching that. Caring. Right? And I think the other thing is, and I get what Tim Grover's saying about you'll never be this person, and I know what he's trying to do there in that, in terms, and he's using athletics, because athletics often involves some giftedness that we aren't all born with and we can't nurture from there. But there are areas that we can, I mean, I'm not the biggest Gary Vaynerchuk fan in the world, but to see when he was doing his first set of videos for Wine Library TV to what he's doing now, that was a consistent practice of making videos of working. We've seen this with multiple people in our own field, and
what's Marcus Brownlee, right? Another great example, right?
Yep.
He went from just like, here, let me take out my iPhone and do a selfie and talk into it or whatever, right? To now he's got like an entire, takes up one floor of an office building production team.
Yep.
Putting together car reviews. But
Mr. Beast literally late last year released a video saying, this is me 10 years from now, like 10 years ago. And he released it when he said he had finally had like a certain number of subscribers, just to show where he started, which was, I believe, him sitting 10 years ago, leaning up against his dresser in his bedroom. And now what's he doing? Now, again, here's the thing. And I think that this is where when we are thinking about the idea of practice, and then we do comparisons, right? Number one, there is a comparison trap, but it's not the comparison trap. It's not the imposter syndrome one I'm talking about.
Right.
It's I don't like this person, so therefore I'm not going to do what they did. It's because there are plenty of people that I am not a big fan of, that I can appreciate them putting in the reps, right? That
putting
are
in the work. Yeah.
putting in the work. I can appreciate that even if I don't agree with what they're doing, or maybe necessarily how they did it. But the bottom line is that it's the act of practice that I can appreciate. And I think that possibly more than imposter syndrome is a real comparison trap. It's not so much, oh, I'll never get to that point because look, how come I'm not there yet, so on and so forth. I think the one we don't talk about it enough is, yeah, that's great, but I don't like that guy, or that woman or whatever, so I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, well, and also I think, one of the things that is going on at my daughter's school. I know I talk about her all the time, dude. I'm sorry, but it's just so many good examples in her life. Um, but there's let's just say that there is a majority of parents who are unhappy with the current administration of the school and have expressed that unhappiness to the school in various ways, shapes, or form. And when someone brings a problem to you where it's like, hey, we've kind of lost our faith and our trust in your ability to do this right, or do this in the way that we would like. In the case of my daughters, do this in the way that we are paying for. Um, and you can take that criticism and you can use it to open up a dialogue. Say, hey, okay, I'm ready to hear your concerns. Could tell me your concerns, and even if I don't necessarily agree with your concerns, I at least can say, well, why? I don't think that's. Why do you think that? Or why do you think that about me? Or like, do you really think like what gave you the impression that like if you say this, that, or the other thing, like your kid's going to get retaliated against by, like we're going to single out your kid for detention more often, or we're going to that we're going to like be those guys. Like we're not, that's not not who we are. And
Right.
I'm wondering where that came from. Right. And you can then like find out where that came from. It's like, oh, okay, I see. You know what? Yeah, okay, you got a point. I see why you would think that. And here, right? You get what I'm saying, right?
Sure,
Like you
sure.
can have that conversation, figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
and come together and start to rebuild that trust. This
Yes.
is not what this administration is doing.
Okay.
They recently revised the enrollment contract. It
Mm-hmm.
hadn't changed significantly in about 20 years.
Right.
It had about six items on it. It got to the point where most people just like, oh, as part of the re-enrollment process, you look at the enrollment contract, like a terms of service agreement on sophomore. You just scroll,
Yep.
click, done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they changed it. And it's about 20 points now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was written by lawyers.
Okay.
Or I should say in consultation with lawyers. And it essentially says, literally, in point number 11,
Mm-hmm.
it says, if you say anything bad about the school, the administration, you have a disagreement with how with the education we're providing, or this, that, and the other, we reserve the right to kick you out and not give you any refund. So it's like, huh. So your response to we don't trust you and we think if we say something, you're going to retaliate against our kid or somehow against us. And that's not really fair. We don't know. Um, was to say, in fact, that is what we're going to do.
Wow.
Right. So and obviously I could make another allusion, right, to
Sure.
a certain leader of
Mm-hmm.
our country right now,
Yep.
who everything that is going on in our country right now,
Mm-hmm.
everything, all of the things, the tariffs, the
Mm-hmm.
ICE raids, the raiding ballot boxes, the all of it. He said, elect me and I will impose tariffs because I think it will make us a ton of money. I
Yep.
will, I will deport 3,000 immigrants a day. We're going to, going to, get all of this stuff, every last bit of it. There's no mystery here.
No.
This is not anything that, in fact, it was a promise. He's
Yeah.
fulfilling it.
It's
And
practicing.
and
It's practicing what you're preaching, essentially.
right, exactly, right, and there's one side of me who says, "Well, yeah, that sucks." I mean, certainly, yeah, it's horrible. I don't agree with any of it. I didn't vote for him, and
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe anyone did. But I have to respect he's doing what he said he was going to do. I have
Yeah.
to respect that. I felt the same way about Jesse Ventura, to be honest with you.
So the thing is that, again, like, I think that's an interesting the correlation between practice, like doing something, because again, if you do something again and again and again, people will often say that's a habit. I think a habit stems from practice, obviously.
Oh,
So the
there's no
rituals,
question about
there's
it.
no
Yeah.
question, but we don't talk about practice. We talk about
Mhm.
habits and routines. We
Mhm.
talk about the end result of said practice, right?
Practice. Yeah.
So again, it
Yeah.
comes back to this idea of, you know, um, I want to build this habit, or I want to build this
Mhm.
ritual, or I want to get to this point. And
Mhm.
this is where, ooh, I just thought of this. This is where, maybe my love-hate relationship with life hacking came into be, right? Because we don't try to hack the end. We try to hack the way to get to the end. And that's often practice, right? So let's actually talk about this in terms of AI, because I think this is an area where AI can short circuit practice, and maybe my concern is that it's twofold. Because again, we've talked about nuance ad infinitum on this podcast and in this
Mhm.
series,
Mhm.
but this idea of
Mhm.
AI, let's say you want to write something and you're a writer. Well, number one, if you're using AI to write everything, then you're not really a writer per se. You are, I would argue that. But what I would
Mhm.
say is, the more you do that, your practice becomes the use of AI as opposed to the practice of writing, right? So, will you get better at writing if you are using the AI as a practice to write? Uh,
Mhm.
it I would argue no, because you are not actually doing the practice, unless your practice is to write with AI, in which case, absolutely it is. So often what we'll do is we will again try to figure out a way to, get that magic pill, right? Get that silver bullet. And the thing about practice, number one, is, again, it's long. It sometimes never ends, right? In fact, often it never does. I mean, again, with athletes, like, the game ends and then they go back and they're practicing again, right? Because they want to figure out where the gaps were. They want to get better. They want to maintain and sustain, right? So that's the first thing. But I think the other thing about it is, if we lose the ability to, we keep forgetting and this is going to sound, again, it's very nuanced, is when we are always completing or focused on completing. And again, we complete projects, initiatives, and things of that nature. But when we're near the end of our lives, the things that are going to stick with us, the things that are going to hold meaning and purpose are the things that we practiced, right? It's the things that we're going to be, either we're going to be remembered for, or the things we remember. I'm going to practice my parenting skills. I'm going to practice my business skills. I mean, you alluded to the president of the United States. He, whatever he practiced all the way up until the end is what people are going to remember him for. Now, again, depending on who you're rooting for, you're gonna that will the color, the legacy, the aspect, and we've talked about legacy before too. So it frustrates me and fascinates me that we don't look at practice as something that we just do until until we're done. And when we're done, I mean, we shuffle off this. We're so enamored with the end result, and we know there's so much literature out there about, hey, when you finish something, you get that big dopamine spike, and then it goes away, and you're like, wait a minute, what? But the idea of practice, it has a way of keeping it at this like low level kind of, it's percolating, right? And
sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and so I can't remember where I've mentioned it before on this podcast or not. I'm pretty sure I have. But there's the thing I call Brady Favre syndrome. And what Brady Favre syndrome is.
Brett Favre. Yeah.
Tom
Brady. Tom Brady and Brett Favre. Right.
And Brett Favre,
talked about
right?
this. Yes, we have talked about this.
So Tom Brady and Brett Favre, and to a certain extent, Michael Jordan suffered from this greatly and still suffers from it today. But Brady Favre syndrome is this, and it is you do this thing for pretty much your whole life. You do this practice, and your entire life is built around doing that practice, and you are performing at a level doing that practice that, is at that kind of, that Jordan, that Bryant, that, Brady is certainly included in that class of players. And I would argue that Brett Favre is to a certain extent as well. Certainly not at the level Brady is, but he's certainly on the lower level of that, right? But, it's the guys who are at that level, the Jordans, who retire. They recognize that it is that they are no longer performing at the level, no longer can perform at the level that they were. And they retire. Either they're at the top and they're retiring because they know they can't get any better than that, or maybe they're getting older or what have you, but for whatever reason. But this is literally what they've done their entire lives. Jordan has woken up at 5 since he was 12 and been out on that basketball court.
Yeah.
Brady has been waking up and immediately gone to the field, and he's throwing the ball with the trainer, right? Favre, same thing, right? And so these guys, they retire, and the practice is who they are.
Yeah, it's wrapped in their identity.
And without the practice, they don't know who they are.
I would argue that...
And they get home, and they stare at these 4 walls. They have nothing to do. They have nothing to work on or work towards. And they go, I can't do this. Get me back in the game.
Right. But here's
Brady
my
Favre syndrome.
Right. But and I've been thinking about this too, especially, and I'm imagining you are as well, as our kids depart and start to go on their right?
Yep.
Like we had
this weighs very heavily on me.
Exactly.
Very heavily on me.
Same, right?
Yeah.
And so So I would even, and I've actually worked with some people who are like, I've just retired and now I don't know what to do. And these aren't people who are doing like number one. And I think with Brady Favre syndrome, it's such a compressed time frame, right? Like comparatively, right? In other words, they're retiring by their say. I mean, we're seeing Aaron Rodgers as a good example. He's still going because what else is there to do? We've also seen how that can take a toll on personal lives as well. Like, I think those are examples that, I mean, obviously that when you're in that spotlight and you're performing at that high level in a league that is only the best of the best, right? That there's an added pressure there, but I don't want to discount those that are, hey, I had kids, the kids are gone, my career's winding down. What am I going to do? Like, this was my practice. Like, my daily practice was this, what does that look like? And I think the ones that are able to, still have verve in their lives and stuff, are they they recognize this early enough that they start to add things to the mix. Like, here's an example. Wayne Gretzky would be a great example of this too, because Gretzky was one of the best. Then when he retired, he became a coach and was not a good coach. Was not. No. His teams did not do well.
Well,
Jordan was not a good.
Jordan wasn't a great coach.
No, he wasn't a great owner either, right? Like, in terms of basketball, like. I mean, Brady seems to be doing okay right now, but what does that look like? And I think that when you are part of the practice is I think recognizing what you need to stick with and what maybe you need to cast aside. And like, so as a writer, I've said this to so many people. Like, people have said, look, when are you going to retire? I'm like, I'll never stop writing.
That's not a word that applies here.
Will I stop coaching? Probably. I would say I would, right? Well, so there's elements. So I think you can take things out of it. But I mean, again, we can go back to politicians. When they are getting older, I mean, this is where people are talking about like term limits and stuff. Same thing in Canada. And it's like, why aren't there? Well, what are they going to do if like that's... And apathy plays a role in this too. Well, I know this person, so I'm going to keep electing them because at least they're familiar. And familiarity, it breeds contempt. There's a total, that's why the quote exists, right? And so I think that I'll go back to journaling, as I tend to. When you notice this, like, I have been spending time thinking about, well, my daughter's already in Montreal. My son is in grade 10, he's already looking at universities because he's at that age where you have to start thinking about what that life looks like.
We started then too. Yeah.
And you think about, well, there's so many competing ideas. Number one, what am I going to do now? Like, this was such a huge portion of my life, but also, I don't know if this comes across. This is a different thing, but I see the idea of practice that I want to instill in them for the things that they really want to spend time with doing, right? Like the practice of being better with money than I was, the practice of cultivating and nurturing, hobbies and the career stuff that they want to, because I didn't necessarily have that with my parents. My parents were wrapped up in themselves, and they were not like, I don't mean that they were, they ignored me, but they were not happy in each other's marriage. Like they weren't good. So they were caught up in that. And I felt that, as I look back, I'm like, maybe that kept me from pursuing things that I might have pursued or what have you, because I didn't have that support system there. And I think that that's another key thing, is having a support system there, whether you orchestrate it yourself or perhaps more importantly, have others that will have your back, right? Like, I know that as this winds down for me and for you, is in terms of like active parenting, I'll use that term, that I can go to you and say, man, like, I got to do some other stuff because this stuff's missing. So you know, and if you know somebody well enough and you've got that friendship there, that can be helpful too. Those mentors, those confidants. But I think that is part of maintaining and sustaining the practice, is knowing that you, number one, while you actually have to practice, you don't necessarily have to do it without people supporting you along the way. Well, again, Tim Grover is a great example. 5 a.m. When will you be there? I'll be there at 5 a.m. too. Great.
Exactly. Yeah. And right. And that, it doesn't matter where you are in your level of expertise. Yes, you not only need that, but that's one of the tools for your practice, right? Is one of the tools to maintain that practice. And in general, and as we've discussed before, I believe in the honesty episode that we recorded. It's very easy to break promises to yourself because nobody sees it but you, right? That's the reason why it's actually very beneficial to, when you have a coach, when you have a friend who's helping you with something, or when you have when you're seeing a professional, it doesn't matter what it is. It's very helpful to be involved, even with something that is really personal to you, to have someone else to be accountable to, right? To have someone else who is going to not allow you to break the promise, or who you will not allow yourself to break the promise to, right? And is why I've long advocated putting tasks and things like that on your calendar, right? Even if it doesn't look like necessarily like your regular calendar, even if it is just saying, today I am going to do X, Y, and Z, and here's the time I'm going to do that in, is helpful because you have now made a commitment, made a date with yourself, made a date with your calendar and with your time to get those things done and to practice, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, if Jordan has said, I'm going to be at this place at 5 a.m., you can guarantee that, Dr. Tim was there. And if Dr. Tim, if he tells Dr. Tim to be there at this, he's not going to not show up. I mean? All of it's symbiotic.
I also think that we have to be careful too, because you have to decide what practice is the most valuable to you as well. So let me give you an example. Writing is such a fundamental part now for me that is, and so when someone says, like in the idea of sports, they go, I'm going to go to practice. I almost say you should I'm going to go to my practice, because then there's an ownership of it, that there's this idea of improvement. It's like, I've got this initiative I'm working on with clients, and it's called Your Clockwise Week, right? Where they fill out a question, an intake form, and then they put it out there, and I assess it, and I kind of go through it. And when I
got the email, it's a pretty good price. I was thinking about signing up for it. I'm not joking.
No, it's a, and I mean, because there are so many, after doing this for, again, the practice of 15 years plus of doing this, there's a lot of commonalities that you see. And I mean, as I've been doing this, I've noticed, this doesn't just apply to this person, but also applies to this person. But it's all about highlighting. I mean, one of the questions is, what matters most right now? Because that's the practice that you want to cultivate, right? And but one of the things that I've been thinking about is the idea of devotion around this too, right? Like, because you can only devote so much to a practice. And there was I saw this video, and I think, you know how much of a coffee nerd I am, right? Like, that's part of my morning ritual. So there's this, it stumbled upon this video on social media, and it's a pop-up, and I believe they're actually building a permanent store in London. and it's a coffee shop. And the coffee shop, they have a sandwich board outside, and it lists every coffee type that you could get, but it crosses off all of the ones except for flat white. And the store is called Flat White or F Off.
Yeah.
That's all they make is a flat white.
Yeah.
And I love it because, first off, there's a few reasons. Number one, and they pointed out, we make one thing and we make it really well. And I'm like, great. And then the interesting thing is a guy who likes the cortado, a flat white will do. Like, I mean, if you like, and if you like a flat white is a good coffee that kind of, in fact, John Cena even has a video, I think he did it for GQ or Esquire or something, where he said, if a coffee shop can make a good flat white, then I know it's a good coffee shop. Mike Schmitz, who we both know, he said, he was the one that told me when we were in Boise one year at Craft and Commerce, the KIT conference. He said, Mike, if you can go to a coffee shop that makes a good cortado, then you know that everything else there is going to be good. So when I saw this, first off, I thought of Mike. I think he would chuckle at it, minus the expletive, maybe, but I do love the expletive because it's basically that's it. And so I think that when you are, one of the things I would encourage somebody, if they're thinking about this stuff, like, what is my practice? Figure out what your flat white is. Initially, right? Like, figure out what that is. And to the rest, you saw what that store did. And what's great is what I loved about it too, not just the demeanor and the candor, but the fact that they had the sandwich board that listed every other possible coffee drink that they could make, and it was just crossed off like it didn't matter. I'm like, because that shows you all of the potential things that you could do, but they're like, nope, just this.
Yep. Yeah. And I am increasingly so, oh gosh, I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but it was brilliant. It was highly successful. There is a restaurant in town, French style cuisine, that, was looking for a way to do something different, and what is traditionally a slow time for restaurants, but the conditions here have been especially brutal on the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
For any number of reasons. But they were looking for something to do that would be, I don't really know the whole reasoning behind it. I read an interview with the owner, and I thought it was great. It was fascinating. It's basically this: for every Wednesday in January, they did a pre-feed menu that was, you had 2 entree options. That's it, 2. Steak frites, mule frites. So you could have your mussels, or you could have steak.
Yep.
And that was it. They had a very limited selection of like a couple of cocktails, a couple of beers, and a couple of wines. Glasses, by the glass, that you could order, all for the same price, $11. $11, beer, wine, cocktail, doesn't matter, $11. The pre-fee, I believe, was like $39. $39. Oh, and the frites, all you could eat. Doesn't matter. The steak we give you isn't enough food. The mule, not enough. Order more frites.
Yeah.
Unlimited. And they had a couple of desserts that were, once again, $11. So for, let's just call it $50 a head. You could have a nice glass of wine, have a really nicely prepared steak, or a nicely prepared bucket of mussels, and all the frites you could eat. And the frites are fantastic. Done in duck fat, traditional French way. And it was great. And it was a huge success. The reservations went pop. It's so good that that they're now considering opening up a
food truck or something like that.
Not a food truck, but like a separate location that just does that.
Yeah.
If you want a full menu, you go here. If you want the simplicity of one thing, two things done very, very well, you go here.
Yeah,
And that's
quality,
the
quality.
quality,
It's
right?
the quality stuff. Yeah. To
Right.
me,
And
it's where it all began. Like it's where, like, look
right.
at Five Guys, look at In and Out,
Yeah.
look at the
Yeah.
original McDonald's. If you've seen the
Yeah.
movie The Founder, where the
Yeah.
Ray Kroc was like going, "Why are you guys selling chicken?" Well, because no. This is what we sell, and that's it.
Well, we
And people will. I mean, here's the crazy thing. I actually, years ago, this is actually pretty funny because I the practice of business ideas have long come to mind. And when I was working at Costco, I mean, Costco's a good example of we sell fewer things than most. They don't, I mean, obviously they have a lot of things, but one of the things that I said to some friends once, especially because I worked in the food court, I'm like, what if we opened up a pizza place that only sold pepperoni pizza? Pepperoni and maybe even cheese pizza too, because you don't have to deviate that much. And we called it pepperoni only, right? And it's like, and by the way, like, and then someone said, oh yeah, because then you could do like calzones with pepperoni. I'm like, maybe, because we said pepperoni only, but
you take the pizza, fold it like that, squish the
and you're good.
And now
that's
now
fine.
you have
that's
a calzone.
Fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. And you know what? Some people said, well, nobody. I guarantee you that it won't last very long. I'm like, but here's the longer I've been in business, and the longer I've spent time with this. Number one, that if you focus your efforts and devote just to those fewer things, then the thing that you would have to do in that business is obviously market, right? You'd have to market because you don't have the budget that, say, a big pizza place would. But then you could do what that flat white coffee shop did, and that's where your attention can go. Like, well, this is what we make. Great. Okay, we know how to do this. Your job is to do, like, let's really pound social media with this stuff. We've got a gimmick, because that's what it would. Yeah. It's technically a gimmick, and I'm like, this could work. You could legitimately open up again, you do have to take into account the size of the, like in Minneapolis, that could work, right? In a big city, it could work. Maybe not where I live, but you never know. And I think that this all speaks to the practice of devotion on fewer things.
Yeah.
So the quantity isn't in the amount of things you do. The quantity is the amount of times you practice the thing you really want to do well.
Yes. And just the beauty of the simplicity of that idea. And you look at successful businesses that have lasted for hundreds of years. Café du Monde. Café du Monde has been around since 1820 or something. I forget when Café du Monde opened, but Café du Monde in New Orleans. Everyone who knows New Orleans knows Café du Monde. It's in the French Quarter. It is the original, or I shouldn't say the original, but it is the oldest surviving and continuously running beignet stand in New Orleans. And this is what is on the menu. Beignets.
Yep.
You would like a coffee? Okay. You can have we do cafe au lait. If you want it black, we'll look at you strange, but okay. Hot chocolate for the kiddos.
Yeah. So they don't
That's
say
it.
They don't say F off, but they give you the look of that.
Yeah. I think for the kiddos they also do a glass of milk. Well, actually, I don't even think it's a glass. I think it might be a curtain. Like, I can't be bothered to pour it into a glass, right? So yeah, but you get my point, right? That's all they do.
Yeah, steam
and they're
whistle.
busy. 24 hours a day, they are busy.
Yeah. A steam whistle in Canada, in Toronto, which is Michael Schechter's one of his favorite beers, a former podcast by our mutual acquaintance, and he always would go to Toronto and get it, and they only make one beer. It's like a Pilsner or a Hellish, really.
Yeah.
Now, that if you're getting a steam whistle, you know exactly what you're getting. Now, if you go to their brewery, which I've been to a couple of times, you can get, it's still the same beer. They have a little bit of a restaurant and stuff, but the only beer you can get is steam whistle Pilsner filtered, or, which you can only get at the brewery, unfiltered. So people will get and there's a reason for that. They're like, well, it's easier for us. It's off the keg. And every time I've been there, which is I think 3 times, which of the beers do you think I get when I'm there?
The unfiltered.
Of course, because I can only
Because you
get it
can't
there.
get it anywhere else.
Now, it's
Yeah,
only been around
exactly.
for 25 years, 26 years, I guess
Huh.
now. But still, in
Yeah.
a beer heavy market in Canada with independent.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
It's the same thing here. The number of craft breweries and every single one of them has 20 different beers on tap at any given time,
and their brewery,
and
by the way, is right located outside the Rogers Center, which used to be the Skydome. It's in downtown Toronto. No, but that location is helpful. But the fact of the matter is that it's been in that location for a long time. So that real estate would have been expensive even in 2000. So the fact of the matter is,
sure.
and the fact that they can do that in that location for that long, and I mean, it's phenomenal to me. And so they have gotten really good at making that beer, the flat white coffee company, and that's just
and
what
it comes from
to.
practice, right?
Yes.
That comes from practice, right? When you do one thing and it's all that you do, you can do it consistently. You can do it the same way every time. That there's something to be said for that level of consistency, because I can tell you from going to the many craft breweries around here, there are certainly not only breweries that are, they're kind of known for their IPAs, but the rest of their stuff is garbage. These folks are kind of known for their German styles, but that's all you're going to get, these German styles, but it's going to be like 18 different German styles of that you're going to have to decipher or just know about, like all of this stuff would be it's the Pareto principle, right?
Yep.
Most of these places should kill 80% of what they serve. They should just be done with it and never make it again, and focus on the 20% that A, people are buying, and B, that they're very good at.
Yep.
And even if they're not very, very good at it, if it's the stuff that people are buying, they should focus on it so they can become very, very good.
Yeah. The trick there is the novelty factor, and I think that's what throws people off. Humans love to not only they love new and novel, right? So I mean, it's the exploration part of us. So it's really, I understand the challenge of this is the practice, and I'm going to do it in fewer things consistently so I can sustain it. Problem is, they add more things, they can't sustain the consistency, and so on and so forth. But this has been a great conversation. We'll wrap things up here. We'll be back next month with another monthly episode of PM Talks. Patrick, where can people pick up? You've got a book, of course, The Practice of.
Yeah, I've got a few books actually.
Yep.
And the best place to find links to all of my stuff is just to go to patrickrhone.com, PatrickRhone.com, because that's kind of like a digital gateway to all of the things that I do, from writing books to circus rigging. So if you're interested in any of that, go there.
And as for me, I've got a new book coming out this year, which Patrick has had the pleasure of reading already. I think you're the only person that's read it, other than
It's really great. I need to write you a better forward, but that's okay.
It's called
I'll get to that.
It's called Productiveness. You can go to mikevardy.com/productiveness to sign up to get updates as we're kind of going through the final phases of copy editing, and I think that book speaks to this kind of stuff that we're talking about today for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it's the it's the higher level stuff, right? And I think that I think by this point we've all been worn down with all of the various productivity, self-help stuff. I mean, Mike included. Mike works on this space, and I'm sure the last thing he wants to read is another thing on,
Oh, look, another system. All right.
Look, another system, another strategy, another thing that's exactly like this thing that this person wrote, just with different titles and names. But where the metal meets the road is in like these conversations that we have, right? That's where like the the true understanding, the why, as it were, behind the what,
Yeah.
happens. And I think that this book does a very different, and I mean that not in a Minnesota way. I mean that in a very good way. Um, uh, it approaches that in a very different way. There's a calmness to what you wrote, which I really appreciate.
Well, thanks for that. I
Right?
appreciate it.
There's
Yeah.
there's there there there's a serenity there that I think will actually surprise people. If you've read other things that Mike has written, I encourage you to pick this one up when it's available because it's a different tone.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's a it's a more mature tone as well.
Yeah, I feel like, again, speaking of practice, when you've been doing this for a long time and it becomes the practice, it just you evolve from there as well, right? And
Yeah.
Patrick, thanks so much
Yeah.
for joining me on this episode, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you, Michael.